You can do many things in a van. You can rest in a van. You can vomit out the side on Thanksgiving alone after you had too much Four Loko. You could have consensual sex for the sole purpose of reproduction in the missionary position. I was talking to someone, van came up, and she said, "What is this van for?" And I go, "Transportation." When I say that, I believe 100% in my heart it's for transport. What else would it be for? So, and then I just plow it under. So I'm like, so anyway, boom, fixed. It's one thing to get somebody to like you. That's not even that hard on a surface level, to meet somebody out and have them be like, oh, I like this person. They seem cool. It's another thing to get them to trust you. Like, generally, I feel comfortable around this person. I generally trust what they're saying to me. It's quite another to get them to take an action on your behalf or at your request. That requires you to instill some sort of strong desire in them. Come with me to this other place. We're going to go hang out here. Or, hey, take out your credit card. That's a cut above of like and trust. That's where persuasion comes into play. Now, one key aspect of persuasion, one of the key principles, is frame control. Whenever two opposing points of view come into conflict, there's a sort of battle. And whoever wins that battle, your interpretation of the situation or your frame becomes the consensus reality. It is then accepted and followed by pretty much everyone who bore witness to that. By mastering frame control, you can have a very strong influence on how other people are perceiving whatever you're proposing to them. What frames do is they activate very basic desires in people. They use language, they use nonverbal cues, among other things, cultural contexts, to establish you as, say, an expert in your field. They can establish credibility, they can establish authority. Having a strong frame, it's very essential for success in persuasion. If you do not have a strong frame, you're going to be coming out whatever it is from a place of weakness. Core element of this is having that core confidence and understanding you're for some, not for others. So if you do not have that frame, that it's a good idea, rock solid for them to hang out with you or go with you or give you the promotion or be your client or whatever, you're coming at it from a place of weakness. You might have to rely on certain tricks, gambits. I mean, hell, back in the day, our entire approach was ensconced in these bizarre like routines and pop psychology understandings of communication. And again, these sort of, again, like Byzantine gambits might work, but you're still coming at it from a place of weakness. It's just not sustainable, and it's not going to result in a good close rate, period. But when you do have a strong frame, you have established that credibility and authority, you're going to have a much better chance of success. This makes it very easy for you to persuade other people without having to rely on these kind of tricks. If you do have a strong frame and you add in understandings of technique, then it's like your game's on steroids, basically. So fuck the numbers game. And yes, it is always going to be that numbers game to a certain extent, but we can stack those numbers far more in our favor than the general population. And the general population is going to do what? Like I said, they're going to go out, they're going to bang their head against the wall a little bit, and then they're going to quit. Because it didn't work. It didn't work. And the way that you stack those numbers in your favor at the very beginning is through frame control. So a good example of a strong frame is the cop frame. Imagine you're driving down the street and you get pulled over for speeding. When you get pulled over for speeding, the cop immediately owns the frame. Right? They have physical, political, and even possibly moral power on their side. In a situation like this, rational appeals to logical thinking are not going to win the frame battle. The cop doesn't need to sell you on giving you a ticket. He doesn't need to explain what could happen if you refuse. Your lower brain already knows what's going to happen. You know, the strong frame of the cop is impervious to logical argument. So if you have to explain your authority or your advantage, you do not have the frame. Has anyone in here ever tried to explain to someone why it would be a good idea for them to hook up with them? You've never, good. Don't do that. If you logically try to explain why it's a good idea, it's probably not going to work. If you got to explain your advantage, you do not have the frame. So if you want to become a successful closer, you need to master frame control. So the 3 frames that I tend to see out are, actually there's maybe 4, but the 3 biggest ones are the power frame, the time frame, and the analyst frame. So the responses to these 3 are, number 1, the power busting frame, the time constrained frame, the intrigue frame, and putting your own prize frame out. So let's talk about the power frame. What is this? This occurs when the person that you're talking to has basically a big ego. They might be rude to you. They might be dismissive of you. They might act like they're doing you a favor by talking to you. They might kind of just respond very sort of monosyllabically. Yeah, no, I don't know. They might act arrogant. They just kind of act like they're better than you. And this one's oddly easy enough to break because they don't expect people to break it. So just by attempting to break it, usually that will be sufficient to actually shatter it, right? They expect you to just snap into it and adopt their frame, and that's sort of the weakness. That's the weakness in their armor, so to speak. You take them by surprise. The key to responding to the power frame is to not react to it or feed into it by doing what they ask of you. Acting deferential or letting them tell you what to do, like hold this or buy me a drink or take our picture or do this or wait over here, things of that nature. That's going into it. Instead, what you do is you take them by surprise. You establish your own status by kind of snapping back at them with slightly challenging but not angry or butthurt snapbacks. So what would an example of this be? I was in New York City and I had a couple clients and they were talking to these people and I was just standing to the side. I wasn't even doing anything. I was just like observing and kind of like, okay, give, what's some feedback I can give them on this. All of a sudden, one of the girls, she says, I like you guys, but I don't like this guy. And like points at me. I didn't do anything. Like I'm just standing. She's like, yeah, this guy, I don't like you. You hear that? You're an asshole. I go, oh, cool. What is it about assholes that turns you on so much? And she goes, oh, very funny. Oh, good one, man. And then she's like, who the fuck are you? I'm like, who the fuck are you? And then boom, 2 minutes later, I'm making out with her. And the students are like, what the hell? And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I was like, what the fuck just happened here? But again, it's one of those things, it's kind of a thin line between love and hate. The first couple times you do this, when you're about to snap back on them, you'll feel like, oh shit, here we go, here we go. But then when you do it very often, you'll see them realize like, oh, game on. Like, okay, this is a real one. Like they kind of recognize, it's like game recognized game. They'll be like, okay, this is a real motherfucker. All right, what's up? And then it kind of becomes this humorous little battle back and forth, and you can easily turn that around. So let's recap what that is. You're gonna use a mildly shocking, but not unfriendly per se, clap back. So the 2 biggest mistakes that I see when people get into this kind of, this particular type of frame battle is number 1, they will begin to logically explain why what they did is not in fact inappropriate or whatever. What is the problem with this? Even if you win, you lose. Because now it's in logic world. So again, it's defiance and light humor. And this could be something as simple as, like I said, making a small denial of what they said. Like if they say that was wrong, I'm like, shut the fuck up. And then da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like that simple. Not angry, like shut the fuck up, but just like they say whatever, like that's offensive. Shut the fuck up. Repeating what they said in a mocking voice. Like that was da-da-da, that was da-da-da-da. Anyway, blah, 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 and then it's changing the damn subject. Crack back, keep it light. The key here is don't get butthurt ever. Ever. Never ever butthurt. Smile on the face. It keeps the frame. It's also amusing. So like I said, when that shift happens though, they know, right? When that shift happens, they're aware that the frame has shifted back. The RAS allows it to hit their cognition center, and now they're paying attention. Now they're engaged. They're like, oh, what do we have here? Oh, is this not one of these other NPCs? Okay, this is interesting. It's pleasantly challenging. They know they're in the presence of someone legit. It's It's like game on, right? You can even play with like a little give and take there too to make it interesting. So another example of frame is the prize frame. And that involves demonstrating that you have something of value and other people must compete to obtain it. For example, let's say you have a meeting with the client and the decision maker isn't there, right? Like they try to pawn some minion off on you. They're like, yeah, sorry, Bill couldn't make it today. What would you do in that situation?
Cry.
Cry. Very Sigma. Piss yourself and cry, and then piss on the carpet. Piss yourself, allow it to drip on the carpet of the lobby. It's a Sigma move. Call your mommy, make her prepare some nuggies for you when you arrive at home. Okay, I would say something like, oh, so you're asking me to delay the start? All right, I guess I can wait 15 minutes. If you can't make it by then, I guess we'll just reschedule. Like, don't fall into that frame. So this will usually make them track the guy down at that point. Similar to negotiation, if you're not willing to walk, you're already in a massively losing position. If you're clearly more invested than the person you're talking to, terrible. They know, I got him. I got him right here. This guy will do whatever I want. It's not a question. There's no question. There's no mystery. There's no intrigue of whether they could. You want it to be a will we or won't we. Not this, oh, here's another like guy just looking for any port in a storm. You have to learn how to present yourself in a way where you are cooler than them. Not cooler in them in the sense that you're superior, but like you care less. You just do not care. Like you're just enjoying yourself. Something about them struck your fancy. You wanted to investigate. You put yourself in that middle space. You invited them to meet you in the middle space and collaborate with you in this space. You're not going into their space. You're not waiting for them to come to your space. You're putting yourself in that middle space. You're presenting something. You're inviting them to come into that, to join you in this space and make something happen together. Right? If they don't want to, that's cool too. Next. You're just going around. It's a collaborative vibe, not a competitive vibe. So it's very, very difficult to wrap your head around this when you're first starting out. I call it studied indifference or studied nonchalance, where it's like a sprezzatura. Anyone know what that word means? It's from like the Italian Renaissance, where these courtiers, people in the court, they had to know how to do all this shit. They had to know how to fence. They had to know how to play the fucking mandolin. They had to know how to dance. They had to know how to sing and compose sonnets and all this shit. So they had to study all of these things, and it's very difficult things. But in practice, they had to make it appear effortless. So it's giving this air of effortless lack of concern. It's hard to wrap your head around because it's a knack, right? Like snapping your fingers. Going back to that knack example. Remember when you were trying to learn how to snap your fingers as a kid? You're like, how do they do it? Oh no, it's like that. Oh, okay. Oh, wait. Oh shit, that was it. And then once you get it, now you can do it forever. Once you hit that pocket of moving it forward and being interested, but highly indifferent at the same time, you'll be able to hit that forever. And then that is when people will stop. That is when you will be able to hand of God and make people just like with a wry look gravitate towards you from across a room, things like that. The reframe there is that they're trying to win you over. But the problem is, people get so myopic that, about the situation right in front of them. You're not going to be successful at sales. You're not going to be successful in business unless you're willing to get a lot of doors shut in your face. You're for some, you're not for everyone. And it's easy to say that. The idea is, you can get 1,000 partners, you can get 1,000 clients, you can talk to 1,000 audiences, but there's only one you. Make them qualify themselves to you. Are you adventurous? Are you XYZ? Do you read a lot? The qualities that you actually are interested in. This isn't just a gambit. Ideally, this should be like real stuff because it's going to be more powerful if it is. What are some prizing mistakes though? Prizing mistakes, trial closes. This is a really bad one, okay? What's a trial close? On like a date, they're like, so how's it going so far? What do you think so far? How's it looking? One of the key obstacles to persuasion is neediness, which can come from a variety of factors. And one of those is wanting something that only this particular party can give you, which would be what? Money, a job, romantic relationship, the apartment, whatever it is. Needing the other party's cooperation but not being able to get it. Believing that the other party can make you feel good by accepting your proposition and becoming increasingly needing it as a result. Basically, the more that you want it, the more neediness you're going to be broadcasting. So how do you eradicate neediness? Number one, wanting nothing. Now this is one of these easier said than done, right? When you don't want anything from the other party, you remove that dynamic that creates the neediness. Focus on your own strengths. Focus on the things that you do well. Focus on the ways that you're providing value, and that comes with core confidence. So by doing that, that's how you can bring that sense of scarcity to the table on their part, right? So they feel like they need to work with you. Another thing, announce your intention to leave. This is a very, very, very subtle one. Like I talked about this a moment ago. You do these kind of like little trial pushes where you're like, yo, do you want me to leave? Or I don't want to ruin your night.
I don't want to ruin your night. If you said it wrong, do you think it would come off as insecure?
Well, yeah.
It's kind of like it's weird how it's both.
I don't want to ruin your night. I'm such a loser. Yeah. It's all about tonality, right? Coming back to here, like the tonality can make that radically different. The analyst frame. This comes in when the other party becomes very focused on logical or analytical details. Now, let me ask you something. Why do you think, sometimes when you're out talking to somebody and you don't lead the conversation, they will take it to the interview style questions. Now, why do you think that they do that?
It's easier. They're used to.
De-escalate?
No, you think, they're trying to take it off of that. No, they're just bad conversationalists. Most people are bad conversationalists. They don't have to be good conversationalists. They're not trying to get the kind of results that you're trying to get. Remember, increased results, increased demands upon communication. Chit chat, no demands on communication. So most people will default to that. Now, what's the problem with going into that?
Kills attraction.
Exactly. Pizzazz, that cannot coexist with logic. It pushes it out. It pushes it out. So sometimes, even in business, like particularly in like say some kind of finance deal or like a tech deal, they'll try to get overly involved and bogged down in the numbers. You don't want to get so bogged down in the details that it pushes out the relationship question. But at the same time, if you ignore that, then it can come across as you're being dismissive or rude or you're hiding something. So for example, they get bogged down in the details. They're like, okay, the project's 10 million, the net's gonna be 2, the operating costs are 8. We can, you can verify this later, but I think right now we wanna focus on whether this is a good fit relationship-wise, and then just bring it back to that relationship question. You don't want the conversation to go cold and analytical because that kills the excitement. And it sort of dampens the whole proceedings. It makes the buying temperature and the captivated state go cold. So like I said, provide the necessary details as concisely as possible and then quickly shift it back. Another thing, sometimes despite you doing everything right, it can kind of feel like sometimes you're like talking to a wall. Why will they often do this? Because they think that they already know what you're gonna say and do. They're just kind of like, yeah, another one of these guys. And you've got to kind of break out of that. Nobody takes a meeting to hear about something they already know. Does that make sense? So as soon as they can figure out, like, oh, this is one of those guys, they'll check out. And you'll kind of see this. Like, this is why one of my favorite openers back in the day, still use this sometimes today, I go, good evening, I'm the next idiot of the night speaking with you. Or am I the first? Do I have the honor of being the first fucking idiot to come talk to you this evening? Probably won't be the last either. Hey, what's up? I'm Jeff. So when I say that, I'm kind of like meta narrating what they might already be thinking. So they're like, oh, okay, this guy kind of gets it. So you're sort of setting yourself apart, and it's got to be fucking different. It's like, so again, if you go up, and particularly if you're getting into that whole interview style question stuff, they're like, yep, I've seen this before. I figured this puzzle out. Done. Bye. And they'll just completely check out. So in order to overcome this, it's important to use what you might call the mystery or intrigue frame. Remember, narrative and analytical information cannot coexist. So you push the logic out with emotion. How do you do that? Number one, I would say avoid at all costs asking questions. It also engages logical brain and makes them have to think. I basically want them to not have to exert any effort whatsoever, at least initially. You may have heard back in the day, we had something called the 90-10 rule, which is until you get to that hook point where they think, okay, this person's cool, let's keep talking to them, you are responsible for upholding 90% of the conversation. That's on you. It's not on them. They didn't come up to you. You came up to them. The onus is on you. So again, what'll I do? Instead, anytime that I feel the urge to ask a question, or you feel the urge to ask a question, change it to a statement or a command. Now, when I say a command, it sounds kind of like, but like more like, if you want to ask, where are you from? Be like, you know what, you look like you're from da 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 da. Or be like, tell me where you're from. Right? Just that, listen even how the tonality changes. Where are you from? Where are you from? It lilts up and has sort of that seeking rapport tonality. Whereas, tell me where you're from. Right? That's got that sort of cocky, little self-confident, self-esteem demeanor to it where it's a little bit more sassy. Right? Tell me where you're from. You look like you're from da 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 da. This is something that helped me. It's not the end-all be-all, but I had a mentor back in the day. He said, you ask a lot of questions. He's like, anytime you feel the urge to say a question, replace it with a statement or a command. And that very often will be enough to kind of wean you off that question's titty, so to speak. The question's titty. Another thing that's very important, and this is kind of the final note on frames, you must commit to them fully for them to be effective. If you half-ass it, kind of, is it going to work? It will not work. It must be this rock-solid, unwavering commitment. You must believe in your own frame. You must stick to it in the face of resistance or skepticism or pushback from the other party. What's this van for? Yeah, I know the van has a weird connotation to it and it's kind of creepy. But at the same time, I 100% believe it's just for transportation. I drive it to the gym. I go on trips to the dump. You know, anyone ever been to the city dump? It's like your house took a shit. It's fucking great. Just load it up in the van. It's like, it's amazing. Whatever the frame is, just plow it. If you waver or show signs of weakness, the other party is going to see this and they might try to exploit it to their advantage. But if you commit fully to your frame, you stay focused on the end result, you're going to be much more likely to succeed in your persuasion efforts. Now, of course, this is much easier said than done, and it takes practice and experience to develop the confidence that's necessary, the conviction that's necessary to establish a strong frame and stick to it over time.
Hey guys, it's Brad. Just finished up Charisma Mastery. Overall, I learned a ton. I learned about emoting with my face. I learned about using my body language to communicate what I'm trying to say. And we also learned so much from the vocal master himself, Jeffrey, about using my voice in different ways to convey emotion. And overall, this was a really broad spectrum course in charisma. I can apply it in my dating life, also in business and other areas of my life. So if you're looking to develop general charisma that you can apply across all areas of life, definitely check out Jeff's Charisma Mastery.